This is Craig Sheffer, and you're listening to the Clive Barker broadcast.
Close enough. This is Ryan Danhauser, again with episode 8 of the Clive Barker podcast, and this is the second in our two-part series on the Mad Monster Party, and more specifically, the Cabal cut of Nightbreed. So, where we left off before, we were about to go into the Q&A session about the Cabal cut of Nightbreed. So here, without any further ado, here we are.
So I guess we should introduce the wonderful cast of this movie. So Anne Bobby as Laurie. Craig Sheffer as Boone and Cabal. So I've got a quick question for you. How similar is it to the other film you've seen?
Hardly at all.
And I just want to say, FedEx did not sponsor the making of that movie. It was that piece of shit projector. Outside of the background, piece of shit. Piece of shit DVD player, piece of shit projector. I'm not taking it out of the tech guy, don't worry. Okay, so Anne, I'm sure you've got something to say about this. So I'm going to pass it over to you first of all.
Wow, I don't know about you. That was incredible. That was incredible. I can't thank you guys enough. Both of you. This, it's kind of like going back to a house, the house you grew up in like 25 years ago, and knocking down walls and finding entire other houses behind it. All the mythology is completely intact now. The story is so complete. I'm blown away. And I fucking know the script, and you guys didn't know the script. I mean, I'm blown away. I can't... This was incredible to me. The mythology is so complete here. I cried back there. You fucking did it. You did it. You found that scene with Babette. Yeah, I'm everything about it. I'm like pre-verbal at this point. I don't know about you. I mean, did this resonate with you? Did this expand the story for you? Or actually, let me ask you something. Did this expand the story for you, or did this just bring out more of the story that you knew was there? You knew the story was there, didn't you? You were just waiting for this shit, weren't you? And you know what? Honestly, that's why you're here. That's why we're here, because you are there. The whole reason this is here is because of you. Your perseverance and everyone's dedication to this film and this story is why we're here. And I thank you. This was a remarkable experience for me. I'm just going to process. I'll be fine in a minute. But honestly, this was really devastating and moving for me. Truly. Just
I guess it's Craig's turn to share his thoughts. So,
yeah, this was fun, man, coming back all these years later and seeing this. And I'm just really hoping that these guys have been working hard, to put this together, because when in our business, it's a business. So to us, it's an art. But once it leaves the director's hands and the filmmaker's hands and goes to the studio that distributes, and I don't want to cut down the studio that distributes because they might hire me sometime. But, I think that this probably would have been the original film, this much longer, much more character-driven, dedicated version. And so I'm really happy for Clive and all the people that were involved in this film to be able to bring this version out. And I'm hoping, and I know it's all these guys' hopes, and everybody's going to try to do what they can to get this version, re-released, at least on DVD, but maybe even, at theaters. So I'm pretty excited to see that, and God, wasn't I sexy 25 years ago. And thank you guys so much. This is my first convention. I've had such a fun weekend. Everybody's been so gracious and fun to talk to, and it's been great, man. So, like Ann said, ultimately you guys make it for us, and thanks to you, man. Give yourself an applause.
So I remember when this was first seen by Clive, he sent a couple of texts over to Mark. So I think Mark can share that information with you about what Clive actually thinks. And I know Clive can't be here because he hasn't been very well of late. I'm sure you've heard that. But so Mark's here representing him as well as representing the movie. So I'm sure if I pass him over now, you're going to say a few things about that, aren't you? Yeah?
A couple of things. Let me scroll through the massive amounts of text we have here. There we go. No.
Why'd you put that scene back in? She shouldn't be in her underwear.
I think while I'm searching for this, I think Ian should sing us a song.
Did you guys know that song was in there? No. That was actually, I think, the reason he hired me. I sang it in my audition.
I've gone too far back now. That's what happens. I like to plug iPhone now. It makes it such a wonderful product.
You keep doing this, I'm going to have to say.
I think so. I think I should. I'm going to hand this over.
I think we have those 10 lines of Cyndi Lauper need to...
Oh, shit, really? Oh, no, put the mic away.
Come on, baby, do it. Come on.
I'm not going to lie.
How long did it take to edit it? This new version?
22 years.
It took to edit it. I've been working on it for 9 months, so not all the time, but quite, trying to get it right so that it was presentable for you guys, so that you would get decent sound. Even you got to realize that a lot, that footage has come from VHS tapes, so you had to do a lot of work on the footage to make it presentable for you today. And I didn't want you to see some half cobbled together movie. I wanted you to see how the original script was and how it should be, really. So 9 months work, but it's worth it to be here. I want to do ADR. I talked to the guys about doing that. I'd like to make 20 years later a little thing for the end of the film. What happened to Rory and Boone 20 years later? I'd like to do that. There's so many things that you'd like to do with it, but so many possibilities. And the mythology is definitely not dead, which I will come to that in a minute or two. There was an interview published today on Clive's website where he says that there is talk of something else happening with Nightbreed very soon. So that's really good. But I'll push it to Mark. He's got the text now.
I figured out how to work my cell phone. This was the night the DVDs were delivered to us, and Clive and I were texting each other. He sent to me, "Have you had a look at our movie? We need money for a killer mix, but there's one hell of a movie in there. It made me cry, for fuck's sake." I asked him, "What part made you cry?" He said, "Simone's death and the song." I can't explain why. There's a huge amount to do. But cuts always play long at this stage, 20 years later. And then again, I gotta add, I texted him while the movie was playing tonight, when I was sitting next to Anne and she started crying, as she mentioned during Babette's rescue. And he said to me, "Oh my Lord, how fucking wonderful, beautiful, amazing." I, by the way, am now sitting here with tears pouring down. 20 years later, and it still moves people.
Text Clive told him to go fuck himself.
Sing it in a song.
What?
So you can sing it in a song?
Yeah.
Okay, actually, it's a good song.
So, you have one?
I do. God damn it. Okay. No, put it away. All right. God damn it. Somebody record this because we're going to have to send this to Clive. You do? Thank you. All right, this is for Clive. Huh. I got to stand up, sorry. I can see you're slipping away from me, and you're so afraid that I'll plead with you to stay, but I'm gonna be strong. I'll let you go your way. Love has gone. There's no sense in holding on. And the pity in your eyes, well, it's more than I can bear. But I'm gonna be strong. I'll pretend that I don't care. I'm gonna be strong and stand as tall as I can. I'm gonna be strong and let you along and take it like a man who, when you say it's the end, I'll hand you a line. Go your way, my friend, go in peace. I'll be fine and you'll never know. Darling, after you kiss me goodbye, how I lay down and cry, cry, cry.
Well, that's going to be another first, isn't it? So for us, really, all sat up here, it's really important to hear what you guys are going to say. So, do you want to ask any questions? But we're all here
So
to answer
curious
them.
about your questions. That's really cool.
Yeah, questions are really important. So, ask any of us anything you'd like about the movie.
Are you getting any cooperation at all from Morgan?
Yeah, we're here because of Morgan Creek. The promoters and the people that put on this fantastic convention, they have been in contact directly with Morgan Creek, who said, who gave their blessing to show this, and they want to see that the fans, are interested in the movie. It's been I'd say about 10 years ago, the DVD market out here was insane, but now it's dwindling. The world is changing, the market is changing, and everyone's trying to figure out how to make it work. And something like a restoration, just putting something from DVD to Blu-ray is like a $225,000 process, and that's not taking into account digging films out of archives, restoration, color correction, mixing, and we're not talking about a cheap project here. So I think they just need to know that this is something that if they do invest their time and money in, it's going to be worth their while. And I think right now they're open to that, and it's exciting. I think we're further along than we've ever been.
I read on the Film and Stairs website a few years ago that Clive said there was film reels that existed, but Morgan Creek said they had them in a warehouse and there was no way that they could find them. How have you guys had any assistance with that, digging the original film out so that you can get film transfers instead of VHS?
No one here has gone to Morgan Creek's film vaults. I spoke with a gentleman who was a curator there. He's responsible for all their vaults in general, and he told me that the footage is in there somewhere. He was fairly certain of it, but I think the last report we heard was Morgan Creek. After we did Indiana, it seemed like they realized there might be some validity to getting this released on Blu-ray, and so I was told that they did a search. I don't know how thorough that search was, but in that search they said that they couldn't find anything. So the answer is, we're not sure.
So I came to this convention because I was Googling for Nightbreed Director's Cut and found out this was getting played. That's why I flew here from Boston. So what do you need me and other people who have that kind of devotion to do? What can we tweet? Who can we go click on?
Where's the warehouse?
What letters?
That's all.
We are army. What do you need to do?
But in the bar last night, we came up with an idea. Yeah, we did.
Who came up with
Your
this?
idea. the royal we, because I have a nation, right?
Okay.
So we kind of talked about it, and we thought that we might buy the domain name Occupy Midian. And we thought from there we would try another tack to building a campaign. So what I intend to do when I get home is I'm going to make a trailer from that of key moments that will blow people away that are fans of this movie, to make them see that this thing exists. Because realistically, I can't start selling them out of the back of a car at a convention, because Morgan Creek will kind of sue my ass. I mean, right now, Clive's 100% behind it. Everybody sat up here, I know you guys are too, but I mean, they're realistically looking at sales of a certain amount to justify it. Now, we talk about Blu-rays, but right now that work print isn't justifiable on a Blu-ray, is it? Because we need the original footage. And one of my projects, I've got the original cinematographer Robin Vidgeon that shot Hellraiser 2 on board, and he and me and Mark, when this happens, will re-telecine everything. We'll redo the original cut of the film onto Blu-ray, telecine all the rushes when we find them, because I believe they exist. People don't get rid of film these days, and not films at 22 years old. So it's there somewhere. We know from the rough cut that there'll be rough assembles of it, so they'll exist somewhere. So once we can do a lot of cleaning up and a lot of digital work, and then there's quite a bit of ADR to do to get these guys back in. Like doing the Dub thing that I did, which is the only money I've spent on this. I've actually spent a grand total of about $200 to make this. That's what I spent, because everybody that's involved, Jimmy Johnson, the editor who I worked with, did it for free. He bought himself a new Mac just to do this job. Right. That's how much he believed in the movie. We gave our time. Paul Gordon, who's a cinematographer who did the colour grade for me, so he wouldn't bring it up. He did it for free. Nobody's asked a penny. So right now, it's the cheapest restoration ever. Right? And it's been done with love, and I've loved Clive's work forever, like you guys probably do. I saw that movie. I saw stills from those sequences that were missing. Mark was passionate about it, as passionate as a person could be. And I'm a great believer. I don't sit around. I just do it. I'm a doer. So I just took it.
You do a great job this time.
Yeah, but how can you? Yeah, but I remember, 25 years ago I went to see Hellraiser, and I sometimes have to pinch myself a little bit to think I do all these wonderful projects with Clive Barker, and he's one of my best friends, and he's so generous, and that's why people do it, because we love him. So that's bottom line. These guys love him too.
He's all right.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's have something else from you guys. Go on over there.
Are you guys going to be touring around the country or across the seas with film to try and get some more support for this?
That's a great question. We have we're speaking with a few other festivals at the moment. There's a very good chance that we'll be this could screen at Rue Morgue's Film Festival this year. We've had since the announcement for Mad Monster, we've had a number of emails coming in, and I always tell them the same thing: talk to Morgan Creek, because the more emails Morgan Creek gets about people wanting to show this at their festival, obviously the more interest they're going to see, and I think that increases our chances.
Actually, can I say something about that? This is, I think I've said this to a couple of people who I've seen during the course of the day today. This is maybe the most exciting and powerful time for something like this to be coming out, because never before has the public had the power to sway executives to change things. They answer to the dollar. If 100 million people said we would pay to see Nightbreed in some form, they would go, well then let's put it out. Let's do it. Let's put the money behind it. And that is something that people can do. And that's something that you guys have infinitely more power than half the studios in Hollywood. I mean, you guys have the power to do it. It's up to the world. We've all seen over the course of this past year the power that the public has to make change and to wake the world up to important things. I think this film is important. I think artistically it's important. I think it tells a really powerful story, and I think a lot of other people do too. And I think that this is really the opportunity for the people to be a sort of human producer of this. So it's really up to, we're all sort of foot soldiers out there with this. But I do believe Occupy Midian is the way to do it. I really do. I think, put it together and we make it happen. They don't make it happen. They just go, well, enough people are trying to make it happen, so let's make it happen. So I say, let's fucking do it. Yeah.
I'd like to add to what Ann said by quoting something that Clive always quotes to me. It's an expression that comes from Goethe, if I'm saying the name correctly, Goethe, which is there is genuine magic in boldness, and I mean that is 100% true, because if I had never taken it upon myself to just send Clive a text, nervous as I was back then, to reach out and say, hey, do you think that maybe you could take a chance on a guy and let him check out and see if he could find something about Nightbreed? He responded with such graciousness and with such enthusiasm. I mean, it sent me out into the world. And from that single text 4 years ago, we're here now. And that, I don't know what's more magical than this moment. And standing up and singing. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. And that's the thing is, if I wasn't sitting here, I'd be sitting there. I would have flown from California to see this thing. I didn't even know Nightbreed had missing footage. I found it on an IMDb panel. And from there, here. And that's a crazy journey. So be bold. Spread the word. Get it out there. Let's see this legitimate cut.
the stage, I'm pretty confident we'll see this because we live in an age where we got a restoration of manners to hands of faith.
That is true.
I'm pretty sure we'll see this coming out.
That is true.
$50,000
For Manos, the hand of faith.
I kid you not.
On Blu-ray.
What?
Really?
Did they add more tarantulas?
The skeleton brain.
That's insane.
That is insane.
Did you guys get any surprises in the new cut then? Was there anything? Yes. Okay. Lady there.
Well, I just had some comments. I think that what I would really love to see is Lori's character develop. I had no idea how much connected she was to the breed. You know, and Babette, seeing Babette speak, that was something else. And yeah, I mean, I had in the original cut, it was like, you just feared the breed. Lori feared the breed. There was no development, and I really love that. And I also love the fact that they showed a little bit of Decker actually splitting, and that wasn't in the original at all, but that paralleled the book a lot more.
Yeah. I had totally forgotten that too, the Decker stuff, the breakdown of him, the sort of intellectual, the brain, you know. I'll tell you a real secret about Lori, understanding a breed. She actually, in the script, understood her a little bit more, but, like, you know, she understood the breed more, but it's my fault that it's not in the final cut. I was actually supposed to, after I killed myself and Boone revived me, I was supposed to come to with a full prosthetic. I was supposed to be one of the breed, like his carvings and everything. So we went to do a makeup test of that. I went to do the molds. They put the cast on. I don't know how you did that. This man, no, you don't understand. This guy got up at 3 o'clock every morning. I knew Craig in 2 ways. He was either standing in front of me with a camera or he was asleep somewhere. Because he was working so hard. I got to have fun. I didn't have to wear makeup. I was waiting for everybody to get their makeup on, so I had a great time. I got out with everybody. But there was this one time when they decided to put Lori into one of the breed. They put that mold on me to get the latex. I had a total batshit panic attack. They were putting straws up my nose so I could breathe. I'd seen The Naked Prey. I was not doing that. I just had a total anxiety attack. I ripped everything. I couldn't do it. I thought I was going to be fired. I thought they were going to ship me back to America. But no, she actually transformed into the breed in the end. But it's my fault. But I sang, so.
Great. Anyone else want to say or ask anything? No. Guy over there, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Greg, you want to try that one?
I had a blast. He's truly psycho in real life. So I mean, one time we actually had an extra long lunch together, and we started having this conversation about God and life after death, and after that lunch, I felt like killing myself. So I tried to keep our conversation short and sweet, and about the characters after that. And I started to think he was liking that hood a little too much.
Actually, you know what? He had that sort of otherworldly air about him that you actually wondered if he knew something that nobody else did. He and I, when he was on set, he and I shared a driver. So I would pick him up. My driver would pick me up in South Kensington, then we'd pick him up in South St. John's Wood. And I remember the first day, I turned around. He was sitting in the back seat. I was sitting in the front. And I turned. This was the first time I ever saw anyone in the back seat of a car with a seatbelt on. This was the 80s, 90s, you know. I mean, but but he wasn't just sitting with the seatbelt on. He was sitting with the seatbelt on like he knew something. I mean, he was just like, and I mean, you can see, he's like a comma. He's a very small man, tiny, he's thin. And I was like, he like vanished in that backseat. And I thought, are we going to die? Scary, but also a very sensitive man. And he actually, I think Clive had a great time working with him, didn't he? I mean, you know more about that.
Well, Clive admired Cronenberg, and that was the reason he cast him. He loved those early Cronenberg films like Brood and everything. And I mean, Clive is a bit like both me and Mark share this with Clive. He's a cinephile. He watches everything. I mean, Mark really doesn't work for him. He actually just spends all his time downloading movies for Clive. He's literally, Clive watches 4 movies a day. He watches movies while he works. He writes and watches movies. Or at the moment, he watches wildlife documentaries. But he's influenced by stuff. I mean, you can clearly see when you're watching that movie that he's influenced by Cocteau. I mean, if anyone knows Cocteau's work, you can see Clive's approach to monsters. Like La Belle et Bête. He's taken a completely different approach there, and that's what makes it a completely wonderful movie, in my opinion. The humans are the monsters, eh? That's a surprise after all the shit we do on this planet, isn't it? And then, the Nightbreed are really the animals that have to kind of suffer the consequences of the actions of human beings. Or it's a bit like, like not fitting into society being a Nightbreed, isn't it? So Clive, he's kind of playing with things, and then, like the big revelation came in '95 that Clive was homosexual. Well, watching that, it's not hard to see, is it? He's got those kind of things going on, the characters. Yeah, and Clive's, there's lots of layers to that movie, and I think now the layers are back in place that were taken away and stripped out. I mean, what you first watched in 1990 was a slasher movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What you watch today is not a slasher movie at all. That subtext has gone to the background, and the right things happen to the characters, and I think that's where we've kind of given the most respect to the author of this, the most respect possible. And it's great to do it while Clive's around to appreciate it. I think it's a wonderful thing. Yeah. But,
May I ask a question? I have a question.
Who for?
For you.
Oh.
What amazed me watching it was how you worked with the score as it was. You added an hour of footage. Did you expand the score? What?
The score, I took the CD, to be honest, and I just really thought about emotion and placing things. And I am a filmmaker. I've done it for a long time, so I kind of wanted to stay faithful to it and use the score. The score's important. I mean, my only trouble with Elfman is that I started thinking of Edward Scissorhands after a while, because his music sounds similar, his motifs are very similar from movie to movie, but there was only so much score there to use. I mean, it was only so much recorded at the time, and he's an in-demand guy. Back then, he'd done Batman around that time, hadn't he? He was doing other work with other people. So using the score, but I wanted to place it to create emotion, but music does that in movies, doesn't it? It helps us feel something. So that's the use of it there. Yeah.
I thought your use of it was fantastic. I mean, those scenes that weren't there, that score just flowed right into it. It was astonishing.
And a lot of the credit there goes to the editor. I think Jimmy did a fantastic job for a guy that is 2 years out of university to do that work. I mean, Andy's a horror geek. Yeah, so which isn't bad, he'd be as just as anything. Yeah.
Did you guys try all the get Danny Elfman's take on what you guys might want to do as far as adjusting things, or was you guys didn't think that?
No, I mean, at the stage that we were at, or the stage we are at, what we were trying to do is somehow impress, the company into giving us enough money to do justice to this restoration. I mean, I'm incredibly proud of what we see. You know, I mean, Clive's pretty right. I think when we get to it, we will probably end up taking about 8, 9, 10 minutes out of that just by, you know, thinning little sequences, you know, towards the end, all the shooting and things. And
Not the song.
not the song. Well, you know, I wouldn't do it while you were there, dear. Okay, anyway, the gentleman at the front.
So it was, I mean, having seen the movie over 20 years or so, it's a little jarring to see Doug Bradley's voice back in. It's really cool, though. I mean, it was really, I guess, striking. So then my thinking was, after all this time, I didn't realize that somebody had also dubbed Rachel's voice.
Yeah. Oh, she was the crazy coffee lady.
You take this.
I didn't know that. Yeah, at the time, there was this woman in England who was doing the voice of this coffee commercial. She was like, the most famous woman in England. She had this voice. She was everywhere. Isn't that it? That was her. You know, she was this coffee woman. And when I saw the screen years, you know, when I actually saw it, I said, what the fuck happened to Catherine? Because Catherine had such a sweet, redemptive, maternal voice. And all of a sudden, this woman came out. Wasn't that amazing? But what I also thought was that she came back into scenes, was she? Yeah. But yeah.
Nobody knows where she is.
I forget her name, but yeah, she's this famous voiceover woman in the UK, and they dubbed poor Catherine, who I thought that performance just exploded in this. So many performances did in this, truly.
Okay, this gentleman, yeah.
I got two quick questions. So one question: why did they cut so much out? And for the actors, when you guys saw the cut the first time, a couple 20 years ago, what did you guys think when you saw all that missing footage that you knew you had filmed?
All right, we'll start with the first one, and I'll pass it over to Craig. So, no, I think it's not a tough question for me. The studio didn't like it, so they looked at it, they didn't like it, and they looked at it and they didn't know how the hell to market it. So they looked at it and thought,
because there's no movie like it.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, so they were thinking, fuck, what are we going to do with this? You know, and then but we've got a slasher, so let's concentrate on him. And then Clive was forced to do 2 or 3 weeks of reshoots, which gives you the other version, right? So, you know, don't kill Decker off. He's the main villain. You know, like, and don't do this. And so Clive was actually told what to do. So the film got completely and utterly changed by the studio. And you know, he was at a point in his career where he wanted to make more movies. And this was 20th Century Fox. So what do you do? You know, and the guy was writing a novel at the same time. And, you know, he was working on Hellraiser 2. He was so under pressure, you know, and he just, I think at the time, gave in, you know, he decided to go with it and see what the outcome was. And, you know, no, not without giving up a fight, but then, you know, they have the power to take the movie away from you, don't they? And if they'd taken the movie away from it, I mean, they essentially had taken the movie away from him for 20 years because they wouldn't let him near anything. But now, you know, because of Mark's hard work initially, you know, and then the fact that we wanted to do things as a team and make this happen. I mean, like I said, nobody gave us any money, you know, and you know, it was just the fact that you all needed to see this movie. That's the thing that gives me goosebumps and will send me home happy to continue working on it. Is that? But yeah, I think we're lucky to be at this place. But anyway, I'm going to pass over to Craig to answer the other part of the question.
Well, as far as I was concerned, the first time I saw it, I actually loved it. You know, so as an actor, that was probably my, 10th movie or something like that. And you get used to, you know, you don't like it, but you get used to every single film you do, some of your favorite parts are left out, you know. And, you know, as an actor, you have to kind of grin and bear it because you don't have any any real control or input. Even sometimes the filmmakers don't have enough control and input, depending on how powerful they are and so on. So I still really enjoyed the original. This I like a lot more, and it was what I loved about this one. It was truly like watching an art film. It was like you didn't have to hit all the exact genre points. It wasn't about the horror. It was about the people and characters. Way more character driven, and to me that was much more gratifying this time around. But even with the original, I personally enjoyed it because like I said, I'm used to being shocked.
I was stunned. I was stunned. At seeing the final cut.
This one?
Yeah. Oh no, the first one. First seeing it. I don't know if everybody knows, but there were 2 shoots of this film. We shot the principal photography, and then we wrapped. We went from like February to April, May. Then we went off to do some second unit, and then months later, I got a call saying, "You're going back to England. We're going to shoot more." It was called an enhancement shoot.
It was like 3 weeks.
But the whole thing was. The impression I got was they basically were throwing more money to have more stuff. To me, this was the biggest vote of confidence in Clive's vision. And so many characters, I've talked to some of you over the last 2 days, so many characters evolved from that enhancement shoot. Shoot of Saucy didn't exist until the enhancement shoot. My favorite character, that sweet man, somebody please give me the name of the character. The big guy with the neck, his head goes down to his belly. Anyone? Find it, let me know. He was my favorite character. I couldn't look at him without crying. He evolved from the enhancement shoot. So many characters evolved. I thought that this meant this was going to be basically this movie. And so then I saw what they put together and I went, what did they actually believe in? So I was shocked by it, and I feel like we finally got to see everything that Morgan Creek said they believed in originally. I'm never going to work. Well, I can't work for Morgan Creek anyway. But I
Okay, Guy, second row, then we'll come over to you. Okay.
If this was to get theatrically released again and possibly on Blu-ray, has Clive said anything about follow-up / wrap-up to Nightbreed?
I'll give it to the
Inch
exec.
the microphone ever so close to me. There are a lot of things Clive would like to do with Nightbreed, and there are a lot of things we're actually talking with studios about in regards to Nightbreed. It's not stuff I can talk about, but just know that there is some stuff on the website. There is some stuff on the website. You should go to the website. And, just know that there's stuff to get excited about.
It's clivebarker.info. So it's Phil and Sarah run that website. Yeah. Let's go over to this gentleman over here.
Also, one of the big surprises I had was I knew about some missing footage, but I never knew that there was this whole story arc for the priest. There was so much more stuff with him. That really caught me off guard.
Sure. So you'd never read Cabal?
I read Cabal,
Yeah, because
but as far as the film itself, I knew there was these things, but I never knew they filmed the actual footage of his arc.
Sure, yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, if you go back to around 89, 90, and you read those Fangoria set visits, there was a very different picture evolving, and it was very much kind of Cabal orientated. And to be honest with you, that when I was talking with Mark about this, and when I discovered what he was doing, and kind of like I'm always around, sticking my nose in up at the office anyway, doing stuff, aren't I? Yeah. So I kind of like all I wanted to do was, like you guys, is see Cabal on the screen, because that novel's fantastic. It's a great novel. So it's got great resonance. It's really powerful, and knowing that there's another movie that we could watch is, enough motivation to do it, really. And I think there's only 30-40% of that movie that's the original cut. And the last hour, there's about 2 minutes out of an hour, isn't there? So then that shows how much work Clive put in. To be a 2-hour, 35-minute cut of a movie that was an hour and 40 minutes long, where we've only got 40% of the original, shows how much those enhancement shoots did. Because there is stuff from the enhancement shoots in there, like you suggested, but the movie really now. I honestly think this is the movie now, but and it's as much as my name's on it and Mark's name's on it. These guys, it's still Clive's film. He did everything. This is just kind of like respect to the man that made it, really. So, anybody else? Okay, over there and then over to you.
I felt like the fight in Midian at the end was a lot more powerful now. Before it was more of an action scene, and it's like, yeah, monsters, get those stupid people. And now this time it was more like, it was more sickening, the amount of Nightbreed that the people were murdering.
Yeah. It's kind of de-dumbed.
Yeah,
They take out the dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think that's what I said about it before, is make it a slasher movie and change the onus and things. And I guess, my sympathies, ever since I can remember, since seeing Frankenstein, the one from the 30s, is I've always liked the monster. Yeah, so that's a big thing that draws me to this movie. And I'd be kind of brave here, as much as I like Hellraiser. I think that's a better movie in terms of in terms of storytelling, etc., etc. Hellraiser's got some amazing characters, and I'm never going to knock it for a second. But I just think in there's poetry, visual poetry, which I think is a wonderful thing. So, yeah, thanks for that. So anyway, over to the gentleman.
So 2 questions. First, why was Doug's voice cut out to begin with? I'd never heard that part of the story, because it was jarring after 20 years. I'm looking at Loudsburg, and all of a sudden I'm hearing Pinhead. Yeah. So that was, it's good that it's back, because it's how it should have been. But that was odd. And then I guess a lot of the RIPs are going over to the Haunted Mill tonight. Are you guys coming? I hear there's a party bus or something.
Is that where's the Haunted Mill?
I have no idea where it is.
Belmont.
There's a shop.
It's in Belmont. It's not too far away.
All right, okay.
I'll take you.
No. We're definitely going to drink somewhere tonight. We did last night, yeah. So, but yeah, okay. So, as to Doug, well, Doug is, we're all family, the Clive Barker family, and he's a member of the family since 1968. So it wasn't, I'd made a movie with him, so I kind of it wasn't hard. Do you know how I got him to do it? I teach filmmaking at a university, so I got him to come and give a guest lecture. Boom, boom. The university paid for his train fare, paid him to do the lecture, then I took him off after the lecture to a recording studio. I paid for the recording studio, he dubbed it, I took him to the pub. And I made an extra and stuck it up on YouTube, which got every horror magazine excited, so they all started emailing Mark. I said, what's the deal with this? What's happening to Nightbreed? So I'm kind of going to continue to make viral things as well, just to get people interested. So as these guys generously offer to do some ADR on it, I'll make some more stuff for the DVD Blu-ray that comes out. And hopefully Morgan Creek will give me a lot of money, and then I'll get back all the work I put in. Yeah, get paid for it. Yeah. All right, one last question, I think, and then we'll head to the. Then we're all going to be in the room. These guys have got a table, and we're sat next to them. Mark's. Well, I'm going to plug this. Yeah.
Until someone takes us drinking.
Yeah. Mark writes the Hellraiser comic that's out at the moment. Yeah, he's the main man on that. He writes a Hellraiser comic. He's brought issues with him that he's quite prepared to sign. I brought some Clive Barker art catalogues from an exhibition, if anyone's interested. We've got some posters for the new version of this that these guys can sign and whoever, and they're on our table, and nobody's a rival. So anyway, but if you want to come and say hello and ask anything else, or anything you want to do to support what we're doing. But yeah, give us a week and then look for that website. Yeah, Occupy Midian is going to go up. Anyway, so the last question to the lady at the front, and we'll see you at the tables in about 30 minutes.
Okay, I wasn't expecting. So no, please don't anybody hurt me. I'm the trepidatious horror fan. Like, I want to love horror, but so many times I just don't, because it's too much. Let's just kill somebody. Let's have some people have sex. Let's go run in the woods. And that's what I really love about this, is there is a true story. And I think you could bring so many people to the genre with something like this that has an actual great story behind it. So I just want to go back to it because I know Morgan Creek doesn't exist anymore. Other than the website,
it still exists.
They do? Okay.
Yeah, so
if we want to start a movement and contact, you would actually contact Morgan Creek or Fox. Who do you contact for something like that?
It's Morgan Creek, I'd say, and I wouldn't be too heavy. I'd just say, I'd write to them and say, how can I have seen the Cabal cut of Nightbreed? How can I buy this? If enough of you do that, they're going to want to sell it to you because they're a company and they like to make money. So yeah,
don't appeal to their moral sense.
Stalk them, sleep with them, kill them, and just turn it into a horror movie, and it'll be fine.
Tell me where the courthouse is. I'll go look for the.
I'm going to let Mark finish this stream, and then we'll say goodbye to you.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. This has been a treat, honestly. I'm sure some of you flew out here. I'm sure some of you just drove, but either way, thank you for making this happen.
Thank you.
Presented some of this stuff a little bit out of sequence because right now, as I'm recording, I'm back in my hotel room after having seen the Cabal cut of Nightbreed, and I want to give you my impressions. I just wanted to, give you my impressions of it. So, I'm pretty blown away by the whole experience. But let me start. I'll try to start from the beginning. So the movie opens up, and it's not Boone's dream, it goes to Boone welding, and Laurie comes in, and they sort of share a scene together, and that's cool. And then they agree to meet later on at the club, and then you get to hear Ann Bobby's song, which is Johnny Get Angry. Which is it's pretty cool. It's a kind of an up-tempo rock song kind of a thing. So, yeah. She sings that, and so that's kind of a major addition there. There are lots and lots of little scene changes, and there were times when they opted for an entire scene to when there's a small change in a scene, for an entire scene they use the alternate footage instead of the DVD footage. So, like, instead of cutting in to put in just the little bit that was changed to make it look more natural, they did the entire scene in the same, from the same source material, if that makes any sense. So, like, for instance, there's a scene where, Boone goes to Decker's office for the first time, and and Boone is having to confront this idea that he's murdered these people, and there's a part where he's saying, "I didn't, do you really believe I did this?" And he grabs Decker by the shirt, and he's like, kind of shaking him, like, "You really believe I did this?" And then he sort of breaks down and cries, and they're hugging each other. And that's really cool. But the whole rest of the scene was all the same as we saw, before. But it was all in this VHS rough cut footage. Overall, another thing I can say about the rough cut footage is that the sound is excellent. I mean, it's not, you can't really tell much difference. At least in the setup that we had, I mean, it was stereo, these big stereo speaker thingies, and the projector and the DVD player weren't great. So, but the sound married really well with the sound from the original movie. So, in fact, that you couldn't really tell by the sound. If you had your eyes closed, you wouldn't know from scene to scene which ones were new and which ones were old. Let's see. So, getting back to the movie again, to the scenes, there is a lot more of the connection between Laurie and Babette. And in fact, Babette speaks and she has a British accent. And something that I had no idea about, and I don't know about the rest of you Nightbreed fans, but Rachel, the actress who played Rachel, her voice was dubbed over the same as Doug Bradley's. So, but unlike Doug Bradley, they didn't find this actress to bring her in and redub all of her stuff. So there were lots of scenes with Rachel speaking in her natural voice, and then lots of other scenes with her, like, kind of gypsy-sounding accent voice that we're used to from the movie. So that part, is a little jarring, and Babette has a British accent when she speaks. In fact, that Mommy Help Me it sounds like a different voice than what you hear from Babette throughout the movie. And she doesn't speak a lot, but there's about 3 scenes where Babette speaks. So that's kind of a lot compared to the 0 that we got in the other cut of the movie. So yes, let's see. The battle scene at the end was extremely long. And in fact, it was very disturbing to watch. Because we're so used to seeing it as an action movie, or an action movie part, and it was kind of dumbed down for us to be like cheering on the berserkers, and when the people get it and stuff, and that's all fine. But now when you're watching the movie this time, when you're watching this cut of the movie, there's a good, I don't know how many minutes, I wasn't paying attention. Feels like a good 20 minutes, but I could be wrong, of the people shooting Nightbreed, like at point blank range, gunning them down as they're trying to escape, shooting them off of the bridges in the catacombs, shooting them down as they're running out of the tombs, shooting them down as they're running through hallways. Just tons and tons and tons of the people shooting them, to the point where you're getting this sort of sickening feeling like, you're watching a massacre. And obviously I think that was the original intent of the movie, and that was not portrayed in the final cut at all. So yeah, there's that. Let's see. Other stuff, the ending is more like Cabal, and in fact the ending, this is Decker doesn't come back. Laurie and Boone have sort of a confrontation where he's become Cabal and he's got to take on his Cabal responsibilities. And Laurie's like, okay, well, then I'm coming with you. And he's like, I belong to the Nightbreed, and so I'll come back for you when I'm all done. And she gets mad, and how Cabal. I'm sure you've read Cabal, but that whole scene happened, and it was really touching. I mean, it made me it brought tears to my eyes to see that. So that's another thing. The character of Laurie, I think, was kind of robbed. And you'll hear in their reactions to the movies, in the Q&A panel. But Craig Sheffer, he was still the hero. But Laurie's character was really robbed, and I think in the original cut of the movie, she's like following Boone around, trying to follow him, and he doesn't have time for her, and that's kind of the sense that you get of her character. But now in this, it's much more complete. She's got her own connection to the Nightbreed through Babette, and through her, attempt to help rescue Boone from jail, and she's the one who brings him around, and she does in the original cut too, but it's more, there's more to it than that. There's more dialogue, and one thing, after our talk with Simon Bamford, there was a little bit more Onaka in this movie, so, when Boone first falls asleep in the graveyard and he wakes up to the dog, who we now know the dog's name is Frank. He wakes up with Frank licking his face. So the dog, Frank, runs over and Onaka picks him up. And there's a little moment where it's just a different way that the movie is cut. So there's a little moment where Onaka and Boone see each other and they smile at each other, and then Onaka leaves. And then things get a little bit spooky, and it seems like, there's monsters around. Whereas before, in the original cut, there were growls and, like peliquins around, and Onaka got scared and ran away. So just a little, tweak in the way that it was edited gave kind of a much different meaning. So there's that, and then there's also a scene where Lylesburg, when Laurie's going to find Boone at the Tabernacle, right? And in the original cut of the movie, she's stopped by Narcisse, okay? But in this cut of the movie, before she stopped by Narcisse, she stopped by Lylesburg. And Lylesburg's got Onaka with him. So, and Lylesburg's like, you can't, Lylesburg's saying, you can't go, it's forbidden, you can't go to the Tabernacle. And she's like, well, I'd like to see you stop me. And he doesn't try to stop her, and she just goes, and then Onaka follows her. So that's pretty cool. Overall, there's a much stronger connection between Boone and Laurie. There's a much stronger connection to all the characters in here, including Narcisse. And the humans, the Sons of the Free, are a lot more, they were just kind of comical buffoons before, and now they're more, now they're just more disgusting, I guess, or more, bloodthirsty. The kind of people that you want to hate. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts. Still processing all of this. Is just amazing. Okay, one more quick thing that I'm recalling now about the Cabal cut, which this is something that fans of Cabal would hope for, and something that I had hoped for, but I had no idea if the original, if it was ever shot this way or not. But anyway, Decker has conversations with the Mask, and when he's wearing the mask, he sort of assumes a different identity, and when the mask is off, it's kind of like he's all kind of weak and complaining and stuff. So like there's the scene where he confronts Boone in Midian for the first time, and it's a little different. So Boone comes out, he goes, Decker, and he's like, Dr. Decker, and Decker's like, that's not me. And and then they have that conversation about how I'm dead, I'm the Walking Dead, and that you're used to hearing. But then once he stabs him and he says, "Don't you get it? Blades are no better than bullets," and he pulls the mask off, then Decker sort of goes into a panic, and he's like, no, don't hurt me. It's not my fault. The mask makes me do these things. It makes me do all these awful, awful things. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, cool thing. And then, towards the end, when he's telling Joyce that he has something that he wants to show him, and Joyce is like, well, yeah, what's that? And walks up. And in the theatrical cut that we're used to seeing, then he slashes Joyce a couple of times and Joyce dies. Okay, so here he's having this fight with the mask, kind of like Gollum on Lord of the Rings, and he's like, no, I don't want to do it. And the mask is like, yes, you have to do it. And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. And he ends up slashing, and Joyce is like, what are you talking about? And he slashes Joyce once on the arm, and Joyce grabs his arm and runs off. So that's really important, because the Joyce character actually has the time to kind of learn the error of his ways and lives through the movie. So yeah, radically different, very, very different movie. So yeah, those are some more of my initial thoughts.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to open this up to listener questions, and there are a lot. So I'm going to start with Skype, where I believe I have some questions from from the co-host, from Jose.
Hi, Ryan. This is Jose. I was just wondering, there are some questions about the Cabal cut that I have. Well, first of all, is the ending the same as the theatrical version, or do we get the ending with Ashbury killing Igerman and Narcisse being killed by Dr. Decker? I was really curious about that.
Okay, yes, the ending is different. It's just like you described. Igerman Ashbury kills Igerman. He's like, Ashbury is kind of more elevated. He's more, he's not as whiny and stuff as he was in the original. So he's more like, I saw their god, and I can smell them. I'm going to hunt them down, and Igerman is all messed up, and he's all bloody and burned, and he's like, oh, please, take me with you. And Ashbury grabs him by the throat, like in that picture, picks him up and squeezes, and all this blood comes out of his neck, and then he dies. As far as the rest of the ending goes, we have Cabal is there's a whole lot more scene of Cabal talking to Baphomet. There's a whole lot of the Nightbreed gathering up his parts and wrapping them up to take them out. Then there's the hilltop scene that we had, in Cabal, where Laurie is like, he's like, I'll come back for you when I'm all done, and Laurie says, no, I need you, I can't wait, she kills herself. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. She kills herself and with her knife, a knife that she, found that Decker had left behind, and he saves her. He bites her and gives her the balm, and she turns into, she wakes up and she's okay. And then we go to the barn scene, but this barn scene is different because Cabal's not there. It's just Nightbreed in this barn talking to each other about, when he's found a place, he'll come for us on the next wind. If it's not tomorrow, it'll be the next day. Narcisse isn't there. Narcisse was killed by Decker. Decker chopped his head off and was carrying it around on a stick, and then when he confronted Boone, or Cabal, he took the head and threw it to him, and Boone caught it, and he's like, kind of freaked out. And it was, for Decker, it was important because it's like, look, I can kill you guys, yeah. So anyway, we'll go on to the next question.
My second question is, has the movie been rescored? Did you notice anything different in the mix? Because if this is a 3-hour cut, I was wondering, if they had to rescore some of the work print footage, I'm assuming. So I was wondering if you detected any new music, or if you could tell that the movie had been rescored.
Okay, as you probably know from listening to the QA session, the rescoring was done just using the Nightbreed soundtrack CD. So in most places it fits in well, in some places it gets a little repetitive. And there was, the scene where Laurie is going through she's going through Midian to try to get to the tabernacle, and the music is timed so perfectly, with like the drum sounds, boom, 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 and that guy, and that big Nightbreed guy is walking up and goes, "Rrr." So that's a little off now. But, because there's, new stuff that was put in, and that song was probably timed to that cut, the old cut of the movie. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it all sounds pretty good. I was listening, through the whole movie, I was listening for new music, and I was like, I can't hear any new music, because I thought it had been rescored too. But really, he just used the Nightbreed soundtrack. It kind of just reminds us that this was a project to generate interest, and this isn't like a penultimate director's cut. I mean, it's really, really good, but it's a little rough in places.
My third question is, how did Doug's redubbed lines mix in with the original sound mix lines of the other actors? Or was it one of those things where you actually can detect that it's been redubbed, like the ambient sound disappears and you listen to Doug's voice, or has it been remixed in a way that you don't really notice? I'm assuming that they know what they're doing, so.
Okay, this is a really interesting question, because I was trying to figure this out myself, and the only real conclusion I could come to is that it's just weird after 20 years of hearing that German guy's voice. It's weird to hear Doug's voice. And I don't think it was jarring for any other reason than it's a different voice. But also, we need to keep in mind, too, that there are actually more scenes with Lylesburg from the rough cut footage where Doug's voice was already intact than there are scenes that they took from the final movie. So there's more in this cut of the movie. There's more Doug Bradley voice, that occurred naturally than there was Doug Bradley voice that was dubbed in later.
Do Peliquin and Shuna Sassy appear in this cut in a more extended scene, especially after Cabal is leaving Midian after he's been wounded by Dr. Decker? Do they appear talking, or Peliquin handling snakes, or Shuna Sassy dancing on her chamber?
No, I mean, and after those pictures you've posted, I was looking for those scenes, and I don't think that they appeared anywhere. Some of the footage was kind of muddy, but I thought I was paying pretty good close attention, and I didn't see any of those, other than, where we always see them underneath the letters in the opening title.
I'm calling your Skype, and I'm just asking these off the top of my head. So I apologize if I'm rambling on a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm really excited to hear more about this. And if I'm reminded of any other question, then I guess I'll call you back. All right. I'm looking forward to the episode. Bye-bye.
Okay, from the website, Rob Ridenour asks, was Boone more pissed off in this version, especially at the end? I would say no, not more pissed off. I think there was a little bit more of a sense of emergency or dread, that the Nightbreed had about the invasion of Midian. So it was more of kind of an imperative or an emergency, but I wouldn't say pissed off. Boone kills more people. There's one scene where he takes a guy's shotgun and shoots a couple of people with it. Okay, Philip O'Neill asks, are the reshoots, Decker interrogating John Agar and his resurrection at the end, part of the Cabal cut? So yes and no. The interrogation they kept that in the movie, but the resurrection at the end, no, they went with the more Cabal version of the ending instead of the the resurrection of Decker. That was more the studio's idea, to have Decker be a character like Jason or Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers. Okay, next question is from Kelbell XOXO from the website. Says, learning of this made my day. Can I please get this on DVD? Hopefully. So the thinking here is that if they can't unearth the actual, real footage at Morgan Creek, then the next best thing would be a DVD that has like a 2-disc set that has the theatrical cut and then this work print Cabal cut, or a version of that. So I think that's kind of the thinking. It's all going to also depend on Morgan Creek and how interested they are in it. So show your support and go to the Facebook page for Occupy Midian. That's where we're trying to get attention to show the interest that we have in this Cabal cut and in an extended cut in general. Okay, so next one from the website is from Carlos Macia, and he says, "This is the best news ever. I consider this one of the most underrated horror films ever. So excited for this new extended cut. What can you tell us about the difficulties of editing this now? When will we be able to buy the DVD/Blu-ray? Thanks." So I already answered that about the DVD and Blu-ray. The editing they've been working on for months, and you probably heard quite a bit about that earlier in the podcast from Russell Charrington, who actually did the editing himself. So it was a lot of work, I would imagine, especially getting the sound to match up and rescoring it just using the Nightbreed soundtrack. Okay, next we've got from the forums. The forum is timewinds.com/Clive. David asks, where is the most footage added? Is there a lot more at the beginning with Laurie and Boone? There's a little more at the beginning with Laurie and Boone. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot in there to begin with. So I would say yes, there's a lot by comparison. There's a scene at the beginning where Boone is welding and Laurie comes in to meet him. Of course, there's Laurie's song, which there's another good 5 minutes. There's more of them talking when they're over at Laurie's house about how Decker called and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say yes. He writes, how about Decker? I read where someone said he talks to his mask. How is the extra Cronenberg? He does talk to his mask. In fact, I expected the mask to have kind of a more of a sort of an echoey or a sound effect on it, but the mask really talked exactly the same way that Decker did. And that could just be because that was rough footage, and maybe they had intended to put some kind of an effect on it to make it sound, more like it's in his head. But yeah, he talked to his mask, and in fact, Decker had 2 different personalities, one when the mask was on, and one when the mask was off. And when the mask was off, he was afraid, and he was... The mask would tell him what, like the conversation between Gollum and Smeagol in Lord of the Rings. It was kind of like that. The mask would tell him to kill somebody, and he'd be saying, no, I don't want to kill him. And the mask would be going, do it, do it, do it. Like that happened in the scene with Inspector Joyce, when he said, I think there's something I really want to show you. And then he was having this argument with the mask, and he really didn't want to kill Inspector Joyce. But the mask kind of made him do it, and he actually didn't kill him. He just slashed his arm, and Joyce ran away. Which in the theatrical version, he hit him once, and it was in his neck, and he died. But in this version, he hit him in the arm, and Joyce ran away. So number 3, did it feel like a real movie with the new edit? Yes and no. Some of the footage was really dark and muddy, and I think some of that we can chalk up to the
projector and, the computer that they were running it off of. It was, not great. But it was also, dark and muddy VHS footage, and the sound matched up perfectly. There was no problem hearing any of the sound, but some of the video was really hard to see, especially in some of the darker scenes in Midian and stuff. He wrote, I know some people weren't prepared for the rough quality of the work print last time it aired. The temp soundtrack, off-kilter audio, and cards between scenes. Okay, so there's no off-kilter audio. There's no cards in between scenes. Everything is fixed pretty much as well as it can be. There are a few scenes from one of the VHS tapes where it says copyright 1989 across the top. So that, when you see that, and those scenes are also lower quality, so that, is a little jarring. But most of that is gone and has been replaced by this other videotape that's a little higher quality and doesn't have the date on it. So in the soundtrack, like I mentioned before, was, they just took the CD and rescored it, just using, it looks like Final Cut on a Mac. How did the screening go? Someone said that Morgan Creek would be watching, so I hope there were plenty of people taking it all in. There were a lot of people, and the people that were there were really enthusiastic. If Morgan Creek had somebody there, I have no idea. There'd be no way of knowing. But it went really well. Okay, now we've got the questions from Facebook. Roger asks, actually, I do have a question about the video and audio quality of the cut. I know it's only a rough cut, but overall, what was it like? I pretty much described that. The sound was, it was only in stereo. It's not like it was surround sound, because we just had a couple of speakers set up in the front. And then they used a projector, which could have been just a VGA connection to a laptop. So that quality probably could have been better with just the equipment. For instance, every time there was an explosion or something big that kind of rocked the table that the computer was sitting on, it would exit the video, and you'd see the desktop for a little while on the PC that they were using, and then somebody would go in there and move the movie back into the foreground. That was a little bit annoying, and I know that really bothered Russell Charrington when he was watching it. But yeah, as far as the other quality, the audio quality was as good. It matched up really well. The video quality was hit and miss. Some of it was good on the extra footage, and some of it was, muddy and dark. Rob Riddenauer asks, what extra mythology stuff is added about the breed? I would say there's stuff about Baphomet that wasn't in the movie originally. So, when Boone wants to go talk to Baphomet, he has a conversation with Lylesburg, and Lylesburg says that, he can't talk to you. He's made of stone right now because his wounds are too great. And that's not something that we ever saw in Nightbreed before. And, and then there's another scene where they say, why do we have to get him back? And they're going to rescue Boone out of the jail. And, and they say, oh, well, Baphomet talked to him. Maybe he knows something. But they also added that Boone went and talked to Baphomet, and he survived. And no one's ever done that before. So that's kind of cool. That sort of implies that Baphomet is this god that's wounded and he's frozen, and if somebody goes in there and bugs him and wakes him up, he's going to kill them. So that's not something that we really knew exactly before. Rob Riddenauer also asks, are there any new characters that were cut out of the original release? Yes. There was an investigation. Inspector Joyce was at the house where the family, the family and the little boy and the two, those two adults were talking about how they were fat and stuff. Well, anyway, after that scene, there's the investigation scene where Joyce is talking about, geez, we can't even protect the kids. And there's another character that's presumably some sort of police inspector or something that is talking to Joyce about what happened. And we never saw him before. So that's one. Also, there's a Nightbreed who it was hard to tell because the footage quality wasn't great, but there's a Nightbreed who flips through the air like an acrobat.
for no reason. Like, Laurie is walking through Midian towards Baphomet, and she's walking down across a bridge, and you just see this guy sort of flipping through the air past her. And then there's another scene during the fight with that same, flipping Nightbreed person that's all, like, dressed in white, and he flips up to somebody and, like, hits them and they die. So that would be nice to see, in higher quality, so we knew what that was about. He also asks, tell us about the musical number and what that was cut from the theatrical cut. How does it play into the story? It plays into the story because Boone is supposed to meet Laurie at the nightclub, and so after they talked, Boone goes to meet her at the nightclub, and she's there singing that song, Johnny Get Angry. Rob also asks, is the scene where Decker kills the family still in the cut, or was that a reshoot? I don't know if it was a reshoot, but it's in there. So, this is probably the most complete version that you can get. So probably whatever was decent footage in the reshoot was included. They're not trying to make it. They're trying to make it the most complete cut possible. Let's see. Do we see Shuna, Sassy, and Peliquin in their chamber? And Jose asked this already, I think, on the Skype question, and the answer is no. It's all the stuff with her, Shuna, Sassy, and Peliquin is all the same stuff that we saw in the theatrical cut. Rob asks, is the ending more epic with the Berserkers? The ending always felt so choppy. There's not a whole lot more with the Berserkers, but there's more of Boone killing other people. And there's a lot more setup of the Hick people shooting the Nightbreed. Like, there's two of them sitting up on one of the bridges with their feet dangling down, and they're just sort of casually shooting all the Nightbreed that are trying to escape. There's like a good 20 minutes of Nightbreed getting shot up. So, it's not really as much of a victory as it looks in the theatrical cut. Roger Boys asks approximately how many people attended the screening. I mean, I if I were to guess, I'd say probably over 100. Was the audience really into this cut of the movie? Yeah, definitely. You can tell by all the cheering and stuff that they did. There was a lot of cheering at the end of the movie also. Let's see. Is there more score that was cut out from the theatrical cut? Like they said before, really all they did was take the soundtrack CD and use that to rescore this version of the movie. All right. Any extra, Rob Riddenauer asks, any extra blood that had to be cut because of the ratings board? Theatrical cut seemed to cut away too fast. I would say no. There's a lot more of Nightbreed getting killed. It's not necessarily more gory, but, I don't think that there was any extra gore or anything. Rick Rudd says, I've never even seen Nightbreed. Is it worth just simply waiting until director's cut comes out? I don't know how this question made it into here. If you're a Clive Barker fan, you should have seen Nightbreed already. Okay. Jeff Church Hurl asks, are there any new breed named shown of note? So there is that Nightbreed that I told you about that flipped through the air. Also, there's the little, and I don't know the name. It's been named before, and there was this footage this footage has shown up before, but there was a little Nightbreed cheetah person riding on a little monster that was put back into the movie. Okay, well, that ends our that ends our questions on the movie. So that's all of my thoughts. This was episode 8 of the Clive Barker podcast. Thanks again for listening. You can reach us on iTunes. Just do a search for Clive Barker podcast, or if you, or the website is www.clivebarkercast.com. You can reach me on Twitter at BarkerCast, or Skype is ryan.danhauser if you want to leave a voicemail there. So anyway, thank you. This has been fun, and we'll see you next time. Hello, this is Ryan. In the original airing of this episode, we had the song titled Tribes by Venom right here. In order to respect the rights holders, we've removed it from the episode. I recommend you find Tribes by Venom. It's in the Temples of Ice album, and give it a listen. Thanks for understanding. That song, by the way, is all about Nightbreed, which is why it was put in there. Anyway, in this podcast, having no beginning will have no end.